3 spine-chilling true tales of sinister houses, uncover the haunted secrets revealed in 2023. Laura had barely breathed a sigh of relief when she pulled into the cracked driveway of the old house, her heart pounding from the weight of her escape. The chipped paint and sagging roof screamed neglect, but after months of hell, she'd take anything that wasn't a direct threat. It was a fresh start, a chance to leave the past behind, or so she thought. As the sun set, casting eerie shadows across the yard, Laura pushed her 2 kids toward the front door, the air thick with an unsettling stillness, but as the days turned into nights, that stillness deepened. Crickets chirped lazily at dusk, swapping tales of fear like gossip, lulling her into a false sense of security. Mrs. Hargrove, the seemingly sweet neighbor, dropped by often, bearing warm cookies and unsettling smiles. At first, her kindness felt like a hug, but soon it morphed into something more menacing, and unwelcome scrutiny hidden behind her wrinkled skin. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Night fell like a shroud, and Laura settled into her nightly routine. Just as she thought peace had found them, ghostly whispers began to seep through the walls, thin and chilling. They'd float through her children's dreams like terrible lullabies, weaving webs of terror where comfort should have been. Laura would wake trembling, convinced she heard small footsteps skittering through the darkened corridors. Toys lay disarrayed every morning, as if something unseen played a cruel game while they slept. On Halloween night, all restraints snapped when her kids, wide-eyed and filled with laughter, insisted they'd seen a ghostly figure crying in the attic. An icy shiver ran down Laura's spine. The attic door loomed above her, a rickety threshold to a nightmare. Shadows danced just out of reach, and dread twisted in the pit of her stomach. Her heart raced as she climbed the stairs, each step echoing like a heartbeat. The more she delved into the house's past, the more she felt a darkness lurking just beyond her sight. A tragic story unfolded, a family torn by betrayal, eerily mirroring her own struggles. The air around her thickened with malevolence, pressuring her to unveil the secrets hidden within the wallpaper. The neighborhood seemed to conspire against her, with wary glances turned her way when she visited the local store. As the clock struck midnight, the terror peaked. Confronting Mrs. Hargrove in her dimly lit hallway, Laura was met with a sinister grin that sent her heart racing. "You don't belong here," Mrs. Hargrove whispered, her breath ghosting against Laura's cheek like a chilling wind. Around them, the very walls seemed to tremble, groaning under the weight of ghosts long forgotten. Laura's world spiraled out of control, and she could hear the cries of her children from the attic, echoes of despair that demanded she either fight or fall victim to the house's dark legacy. What happens next could change everything. The attic door creaked open, a thick cloud of dust swirling around Laura as she stepped through the threshold. The room felt colder, the air heavy with dread. The only light came from a weak bulb dangling above, casting long shadows that flickered like forgotten memories. Laura's heart raced as she scanned the space, desperate for answers or at least a sign that her children were safe. "Mom! Help!" The cry echoed from the corner, a haunting blend of her daughter's voice and something far more desperate. She rushed toward the sound, pushing aside boxes draped in decades of neglect. Each step stirred the air, thickening it with a musty scent of decay. Was it the house, or something more sinister lurking just out of sight? Her fingers brushed against a worn photograph. She lifted it to the light. A smiling family stared back at her, but their eyes were void, soulless. The sensation of being watched prickled her skin. She flipped the picture over, revealing a name scrawled in the corner, the Millers. An inkling of connection tickled the back of her mind. The Millers who had lived and died in this cursed house. Had their spirits lingered, bound by the remnants of their anguish? before she could ponder it further, a wailing wind whipped through the attic, lifting the hair on the back of her neck. The photograph slipped from her fingers and fell, crashing onto the floor just as a figure emerged from the shadows. Laura's breath hitched, and instinctively she took a step back. It was a girl, no older than her own daughter, translucent and trembling. Tears streamed down her ghostly cheeks. "Help," the girl whispered, her voice a mere wisp. "They're coming." The sensation of dread intensified. Laura's instincts screamed at her to flee, but she couldn't abandon this child. Who's coming?" she asked, forcing her voice to stay steady despite the tempest of fear swirling in her chest. The ghost pointed toward the far corner, where an antique mirror hung crookedly on the wall, reflecting nothing but darkness. In the mirror, she shuddered. "They want to take what's yours." Sudden comprehension crashed over Laura like a wave. The haunting whispers, the toys moved in the night, the feeling of being watched, it was all an elaborate ruse to lure her into despair. She had to protect her children, and she had to uncover the truth of what had happened to the Millers before it was too late. "What can I do?" Laura begged, stepping closer to the girl, who recoiled as though afraid of her answer. "You must face them," the apparition replied, her voice trembling, growing fainter. "Break the cycle or they will take everything." She vanished, leaving only the chilling echo of her warning behind. The air shifted, the mirror trembled, and Laura felt an icy grip clutch her heart. The oppressive weight of the house pushed her against the floor, as if the very walls were conspiring to keep her from escaping. Suddenly, a crash echoed from below. The children's laughter faded into horrified silence, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps began to ascend the staircase. Panic surged through Laura. There was no time to think or plan. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she dashed toward the stairs just as the attic door slammed shut behind her. What awaited her below? What dark forces were closing in? A twisted howl resonated from the halls, and she realized, with cold clarity, that to save her kids, she had to confront whatever haunted the Millers and whatever lurked within the mirror's depths. But was she prepared to face the things that lived in the dark? As her hand grasped the doorknob, she hesitated, fear bubbling in her throat. What awaited her on the other side? The moment Laura turned the doorknob, the cold metal felt like ice against her palm. Her heart thundered in her chest, drowning out the eerie sounds echoing from below. She pushed the door open, wading into a darkness that seemed alive, swirling with dread and threat. As she stepped down the narrow staircase, shadows stretched and danced across the walls, waiting to snag her, consume her. Light struggled to penetrate the gloom. She squinted, forcing herself to move forward. Each creak of the wooden steps echoed like a foreboding whisper, warning her to turn back. The air grew heavier, thick with a sense of impending doom. Where were her children? A flash of movement in the foyer drew her attention. She rushed down, but hesitated. There, at the bottom of the stairs, a figure loomed. A silhouette against the faint glow of the front door. "Mom?" A spark of hope ignited in her chest. "Emma? Ethan?" Her voice broke as she called their names, fear clawing at her throat. The figure turned, and her relief evaporated. It was not one of her children but a shadowy figure, face obscured, cloaked in the remnants of despair. "Leave this place," it hissed, echoing through the hollow space. "You don't belong here, you will be like them." Panic surged through Laura, breath hitching as she stepped back instinctively. "Who are you?" she demanded, though her voice trembled. "What do you want?" "Not you them," the figure said, voice dripping with malice. "The children are the ones they crave." Before she could respond, another crash reverberated through the house, closer this time. Furniture rattled as the sense of something sinister encroached, a tangible fear rippling through the air. The figure disappeared into the shadows, leaving her alone once again. "Emma! Ethan!" Laura yelled, desperation rising. She bolted into the living room, panic tightening her chest. Toys lay scattered on the floor, their innocence tainted by the atmosphere that now pulsed with malevolence. She felt their presence, the once familiar warmth of their laughter replaced by an echoing silence that made her bones ache. Another scream pierced the stillness, a heart-wrenching cry that froze her in her tracks. It came from the next room, dragging her through the thick air toward the source. She entered the dimly lit playroom, a ghostly glow bouncing off the walls. What she saw rooted her to the spot. The mirror hung on the wall, but it wasn't just a mirror anymore. It pulsed with a dark energy, shifting like smoke, twisting into monstrous forms that reached out, searching. The faces of children appeared in the grim landscape, their expressions pleading for salvation. No, no, no! Laura screamed, rushing towards the mirror, her heart beating like a war drum. She could see her children, trapped within the glass. Their innocent faces twisted in agony, mouths moving in silent cries. A cold wind swept through the room, the temperature plunging. The hair on her arms stood on end. Behind her, footsteps sounded heavier and closer, an ominous march closing in. Raw fear surged through her veins as she knew whatever was stalking her, it was ready to claim its prize. She took a step toward the mirror, drawn in by her children's cries. "I want to let them take you," she yelled, reaching toward the glass. As her fingers brushed the surface, the mirror crackled with energy, reverberating off the walls. The room darkened, shadows twisting tighter around her. "Break the cycle." The girl's voice echoed in her mind once more, urgent and desperate. "You must." The floor trembled beneath her feet. Was this the moment of revelation or doom? "Stay with me," she cried, desperate to hold on to her children. But in the heart of the unseen darkness, something lurked. And as she faced the mirror, a chilling voice whispered from behind, "Too late." What choice would Laura make in the face of true horror? Would she take the risk to save her children, or learn too late the secrets that had ensnared the Millers before her? Laura's heart raced as shadows swirled around her like a tempest, the mirror pulsating with a life of its own. Her children's cries echoed in her mind, drowning out everything else as she tried to make sense of the chaos. "Stay with me," she shouted, voice laced with desperation, but the darkness felt insurmountable. Then came the crack of thunder from the depths of the house, a reminder that there was more lurking beneath the surface. The sound sent an ominous chill down her spine, as if the house itself were alive, watching, waiting. She turned, seeking the source of the footsteps. They were heavier now, resonating through the wooden floorboards and pulling her back into the suffocating gloom. Suddenly, the lights flickered, dimming as the house seemed to exhale a breath of cold air. Shadows pooled at her feet, reaching out like long fingers, desperate to draw her into their embrace. Panic surged through her, fierce and consuming. "What do you want?" she whispered, more to herself than to the looming threats that surrounded her. "To finish what they started." The voice, softer this time, wove through the air like smoke, curling around her thoughts, binding them tight. The shadows in the corners thickened, and the mirror gave off a soft, sinister glow, revealing glimpses of what lay beyond. The faces in the glass, still twisted in silent cries, morphed into something grotesque, a medley of despair and shadows. If this was a dream, it was the kind she knew she couldn't wake up from. "Leave!" she screamed out again. "Leave us alone." But her words fell flat against the walls, echoing back to her as if the house itself took pleasure in her fear. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, chaotic. "They belong here with us." Laura joined us, taking a shaky breath. Determination washed over her. She couldn't let this place take her children like it had taken others before. Not Emma, not Ethan. They need her strength now more than ever. She stepped closer to the mirror, her reflection blending with the haunting images within. They were in there. Trapped. And she had to break the illusion, whatever it took. "Hold on," she cried, holding her hand against the glass once more. Warmth radiated from her palm, battling the cold. The mirror responded, sending ripples through the surface, shaking the very fabric of its sinister hold. Then suddenly, a shriek shattered the air, loud, piercing. Laura recoiled, stumbling back. The room shuddered, walls contracting like a tightened noose. Light flickered again, and with it came a monstrous figure emerging from the shadows, a wretched mockery of humanity, long arms outstretched, face obscured by a hood that seemed woven from the very darkness itself. "No!" Laura gasped, terror filling her lungs as she turned to run, her feet pounding against the floor, adrenaline fueling her escape. But only one thought consumed her: where were her children? Another scream echoed, a sound laden with unbearable sorrow. The air thickened as she caught a glimpse of movement in a doorway further down the hall. The ghostly forms of Emma and Ethan were there, flickering in and out of view. "Mom!" Their voices chimed in unison, as if the essence of love could defy the shadows. No. She couldn't lose them. Not now. Adrenaline surged through her veins, propelling her toward the doorway, but that dread figure loomed closer, too fast, too hungry. "Break the cycle." The girl's voice screamed once more in her head, heart racing, a plan formed in the frenzied depths of her mind. She had to confront the truth of this place, to unravel the web that ensnared the souls of the children trapped before. Laura turned, feeling the weight of darkness pressing in. What if she had to sacrifice the past to save her future? With raw determination, she faced the growling entity. "If you want my children, you'll have to take me first." The figure paused, and for the briefest moment, silence enveloped them both, a decision now hanging in the balance. Could Laura truly confront what lay before her, or would the shadows claim her in this final act of defiance? Laura's defiance hung in the stifling air, swirling around her like a storm. The entity, a grotesque silhouette with gnarled fingers, hesitated. For a fleeting moment, she believed she could turn the tide. But then, darkness surged, and the oppressive presence rushed forward, reaching for her. "Mom!" Emma's voice echoed through the veil of shadows, crackling like lightning against the suffocating blackness. She staggered backward, breath hitching in her throat. How could she face such pure evil? "This isn't your world!" Laura screamed, her voice rising in pitch as terror threatened to swallow her whole. She concentrated on the love she felt for her children, the warmth they brought even in these dire moments. "You don't belong here." Each word was a desperate stab against the terror closing in. The figure halted, as if she had struck a nerve. Its head turned slightly, revealing a glimpse of a face buried in the depths of the hood, a flash of hollow eyes, dark pits that seemed to absorb light, leaving only a void behind. Laura shook her head, clenching her fists. "Let them go." With a guttural growl, the creature surged forward, an unholy wind enveloping her as if the house were rebelling against her bravery. It felt like being dragged under water, heavy and cold. Yet, she dug in, planting herself firmly. "Join us," it whispered, the words a soft hiss across her skin. No. Panic ignited like a match in the dark. She would not surrender. Not when her children called to her. Behind her, the mirror rippled again, reflecting distorted visions of other lost souls. Children with sunken cheeks and haunted eyes tugged at her heart. Were these the ones that had come before? The shadows that had taken them? "Mom!" Emma's voice grew closer, filled with both longing and fear. The ghostly forms of her children flickered in and out of the hallway, their essence fighting against the pull of the abyss. Laura felt a crack in the creature's menace. This was her moment. "Whatever you are," she said, her voice steady, "you have no power over love." Light sparked within her, raw and fierce. She focused on Emma and Ethan, conjuring every laugh, every joyful memory. The shadows quivered, as if battling against the warmth she emitted. One desperate thought shattered through her: could her love be the weapon? With renewed strength, she turned to the mirror, pressing her hands against the glass. "I release you!" she cried out. The entity howled in rage, and from deep within the glass, the trapped faces began to scream. A blinding light erupted from the mirror, cascading over her like a wave. Laura squinted, feeling warmth course through her fingers as they connected with the surface. The shadows recoiled, the air crackling with energy. A rift opened, drawing her in like a strong current, promising salvation. "Hold on!" Emma cried. The light seemed to stretch taut, glimmering like hope pulling at the seams of despair. "No!" The creature's voice bellowed, filled with fury. It lunged for her, shadows trailing behind, but Laura didn't flinch. She wouldn't allow it to take her family. Together. She roared back, feeling Ethan and Emma's presence solidify beside her, but then the mirror shimmered, distorting the world once more. The creature's twisted face loomed inches from her own, eyes aflame. "You can't escape this place. You cannot break who you are." The brilliant light flickered, sending them backward. As the shadows stretched out, grasping for her heart, Laura made a choice. A breath caught in her throat. She had to plunge into the unknown, trusting a promise she could hardly comprehend. Time slipped beneath her feet, the essence of her children burning brightly beside her. "Mom!" Then, darkness consumed her whole, spiraling her into an abyss where nothing made sense. Would she reunite with Emma and Ethan? Or had the shadows claimed them all? In that promise of despair, she felt one last pull, as if the threads of time had woven them to something unbreakable, something waiting to be revealed. What awaited in the dark? Laura's mind raced, a whirlwind of emotions clawing at her sanity. She had leaped into darkness, the void swallowing her whole. Inside this oblivion, she was weightless, floating between realms, suspended in time. Every breath came heavy, saturated with dread. Shapes began to emerge from the shadows, flickering memories taunting her, moments she believed long lost. She saw Emma and Ethan, still as if trapped in some haunted tableau. Their faces were drawn tight with terror, eyes wide as they reached out to her. "Mom!" Even the word sounded muffled, like echoing through a long tunnel. A chilling sensation crawled over Laura's skin. "Stay with me!" Laura screamed, desperately trying to drown the growing panic. But darkness twisted around their figures, pulling them apart like tendrils of smoke. "No!" she shouted, reaching out, but her hands grasped nothing but void. The shadows wrapped around her limbs, squeezing tight. The air thickened, suffocating her, blocking out hope. Tiny ghosts of laughter, the sweet sound of her children, reverberated in the dark, reminders of their shared moments. Then she saw at a portal, a shimmer of light pulsing far out of reach. It flickered, promising escape yet tainted with uncertainty. Should she race towards it? Could she? Together. The word echoed in her heart, spurring her on. She could feel Emma and Ethan at her side, as strong as ever, but the shadows pushed relentlessly, ghostly fingers grasping, pulling, stealing warmth. They were losing the fight. As if sensing her resolve, the creature's voice thundered through the air, deeper now, resounding like thunder in a storm. "You will never escape. They are mine." A shiver ran down Laura's spine. Wretched tendrils reached toward her, sensing her heart's pulse, feeding on her fear. Time stretched and twisted, the boundaries warping like a funhouse mirror. Rearranged memories crashed against her, playing in sunlight, bedtime stories, the smell of warm cookies baking. "Mommy!" That cry sliced through Laura's mind like a blade. It wasn't just the panic, it was the realization that they were still fighting. The raw love surged inside her, strong enough to shatter any darkness. "Stay with me," she pleaded again, gripping onto the thought like a lifeline. She focused all her energy, all her strength onto that blinding light. It was a sliver of hope, flickering in the darkness. Just as she took a step toward the portal, the shadows thickened, swirling around her legs, heavy like chains. The dark energy clawed at her, desperate to drag her back, to trap her in their hellish grip. "Leave her!" Emma's voice suddenly rang out, strong and fierce. "Yeah, leave her alone," Ethan added, as if a bolt of thunder had struck. The determination behind their voices fueled her. The shadows buckled, just for a moment their power waning under the piercing glow of Laura's love. The light pulsed brighter, and the chill faded as warmth flooded her veins. Could this be the turning point? She focused on her children's faces, their laughter bouncing through her heart. I will not let you take my family. She pushed against the shadows with every ounce of her being, then crack. The shadows shrieked, a wretched sound that set her teeth on edge. The light surged forth from her, a beacon piercing the darkness. Everything erupted in chaos. The walls of the abyss began to shatter, colors fracturing like broken glass. The nightmare was being torn apart before her eyes. But just as hope blossomed within her chest, she felt a cold whisper brushing against her ear. This isn't over, and in that moment, a new horror crept in, something darker than the shadows themselves, a gnawing knowledge that the battle was far from over. What awaited them outside this shattered void? Would they emerge safe or carry the scars of their fight for eternity? Light enveloped Laura as she surged through the gaping portal, pulling her children with her toward an uncertain embrace. An eruption of color exploded in her vision, shattering reality with bursts of blinding brilliance. But the brightness soon gave way to a disconcerting dimness, and with it came an eerie silence, a void that felt wrong, like a distorted reflection of the world she desperately wanted to be part of. They stumbled out, collapsing onto a soft surface that felt like grass, yet was somehow hollow beneath. The sky above was a bruising shade of gray, rolling clouds swirled with shadows, threatening rain. Laura's heart hammered against her chest as she looked around. Where were they? Emma? Ethan? She called, voice trembling. The weight of silence wrapped around them, clinging like heavy fog. The immediate area bore no signs of life, nothing but stillness. A chill gripped her spine. Panic threatened to rear its ugly head again. Right here, Mom. Emma's bright voice broke through the tension, bringing a measure of relief, but it was short-lived. Ethan remained silent, and Laura quickly scanned their surroundings. Seemingly trapped in a half-light, they were in what looked like a desolate version of their backyard, a twisted reflection polluted by sorrow. The familiar oak tree stood crooked, branches like skeletal fingers reaching toward the skies. But beyond the boundaries of their home, shadows slithered and stretched as though alive, whispering cruel secrets only they could hear. Mommy, what is happening? Emma asked, wide-eyed, her small form trembling. Before Laura could answer, the earth around them quaked, a low rumble vibrating beneath their feet. Panic surged. It wasn't the familiar, safe ground she knew. This was something else, something otherworldly, infused with dread. Stay close. Laura shrieked, gripping her children's hands tight. Just then, a high-pitched laughter echoed from the depths of the shadowy trees. It shimmered with a dark delight, skittering through the air like a sudden gust of wind, unsettling and strange. Laura's blood ran cold. All the warmth she had felt surged away, leaving a bone-deep chill. It came again, closer, and she recognized it now, familiar, yet grotesque. It was the laughter of her children, twisted and warped, resonating with a sinister tone that made her stomach churn. Mommy, they called, but their voices were tainted, a mockery of the innocence she cherished. Not my kids. Stop. The desperate plea tore from her throat, wrapping around the laughter like a tether that she hoped would hold, but as the shadows danced, the laughter grew louder, consuming her with anguish. Waves of despair crashed over her, threatening to drown her will to fight back. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the looming darkness. Tall and shadowy, seemingly sown from night itself. Its eyes glinted a malevolent red, searching, hungry. You cannot protect them, the voice slithered through the air, smooth and familiar. They are trapped in my world now. You thought escaping would mean safety, but I will always find you. A flash of realization struck Laura, sharp as ice. This wasn't just a battle for her family, it was for their very souls. Leave them alone. She screamed, pushing against the suffocating atmosphere, her arms outstretched, fighting against the unseen force that threatened to pull them back into the stalks of darkness. Mom! Emma's voice broke, raw with fear, and Laura could feel Ethan trembling beside her. There was no running from this predator. But what could she do? The figure snarled, a haunting laugh erupting like thunder. Laura's mind swirled with incoherent thoughts. Flee? Fight? All she knew was that the path ahead was darker than before, danger lurking deeper within the shadows. And as they stood there, hearts racing, another question loomed ominously in the air. What if they weren't truly free at all? What if the real horror awaited just beyond the veil of their broken home, ready to strike once more? Laura's breath quickened as that dreadful voice echoed in her mind. She yanked Emma and Ethan closer, a fierce determination sparking within her. They needed to escape this darkened realm, but where could they run? Shadows crept along the edges of her vision, taunting her with their presence. "Mommy," Emma whimpered, her eyes wide, swimming with terror. What if we are stuck here forever? The question pierced Laura's heart, but she couldn't let her fear show. "No. We will find a way back. I promise," she said, though her voice trembled. She scanned their surroundings, searching for something, anything that could help them. The ground beneath them was uneven, like the earth itself had a pulse, quaking with anxiety. Each distant rumble made her stomach turn. She blinked rapidly, struggling to quell the panic rising in her throat. Then, without warning, the figure stepped forward. Its red eyes locked onto hers, piercing like daggers. "You're already part of this world, Laura. You can't escape me." She gritted her teeth. The familiar shadow twisted and warped the truth, burying it beneath layers of dread. But it wasn't just taunting her, it held her children captive. "Ethan!" she shouted, as the darkness expanded, seeming to pulse with sinister energy. "Where are you? Answer me." A soft sound broke the oppressive silence. A muffled cry came from beyond the gnarled branches. Her heart thudded loudly. "Ethan!" She took a step toward the shadows, but the specter blocked her path, grinning with cruel delight. "You're wasting your strength," it hissed. "No." Laura's voice rose, cracking under the strain. "You'll let them go." The figure leaned closer, and an icy breath of air brushed Laura's cheek. "I can keep them, or I can teach you how to retrieve them. But it demands a cost," its voice whispered, a tantalizing mix of menace and seduction. "What kind of cost?" Laura asked, voice shaking. "Your memories. Your love. Everything you've cherished." The offer hung in the air like a grotesque fruit dangling from a tree. Laura's heart screamed at her to refuse, but the thought of being so close to her children made her ache. "You'll rob me of what I love most," she hissed. "How could you do that?" "Because it will save them," the figure pressed, eyes narrowing. "Make your choice." Suddenly, the laughter returned, this time filled with darkness, a ghastly sound resonating from every shadow, echoing her children's names and distorting every syllable. "Emma. Ethan." Each call felt like barbed wire twisting in her chest. Then Laura saw the faint glow behind the shadows, the shimmer of a portal, flickering like a heartbeat. "Stay close," she commanded, pulling Emma's hand tightly while instinctively searching for Ethan. They could break through to that light if only they could reach it. Yet a clawing sensation gripped her heart, the figure still looming, its smile widening. "You'll regret your choice," it warned, and the shadows began to ripple, swirling closer, enveloping their small group as darkness threatened to swallow them whole. The world around them crumbled like fragile glass. Frightened whispers echoed from the trees, approaching like a storm. In a moment of desperation, Laura spat, "You won't control us," and dashed forward with her children, limbs flailing. Each step felt heavier than the last, the darkness snarling, reaching for them with insidious intent. As they broke free of the shadows, the chilling laughter faded into a hollow wind. But as they neared the light, another realization struck a sinister echo in her thoughts. What if they reached the portal only to find another trap waiting on the other side? The light pulsed brighter, teasing them like a hopeful promise, but Laura's gut twisted with the bitter taste of doubt. Would they be safe? Or was this sanctuary just another illusion, waiting to swallow them whole? And in the midst of her hope, one terrifying thought rang foremost in her mind: what if they ran right into the very claws of their enemy? They burst through the shadows, a wave of cold air crashing against them. The light enveloped Laura and her children like a warm embrace, driving back the darkness that had threatened to consume them. But relief was momentary. Doubts gnawed at the edges of her mind. "Are we safe?" Emma asked, her voice trembling, glancing back at the encroaching darkness. We have to just keep moving," Laura stammered, her heartbeat a frantic drum. They rushed ahead, propelled forward by instincts more than any hope of clarity. The light revealed a narrow path, lined with trees that bent towards them, branches twisting as if reaching out. The colors felt surreal, vivid greens and eerie blues mingled in an unsettling harmony. It was beautiful, yet everything screamed wrong. The air hummed with an electric charge. "Mommy, I don't like it here. It feels all wrong," Ethan murmured, his small hand gripping her tightly as they moved deeper into the forest. Laura shared his apprehension, her stomach churning. Every step echoed like a countdown. But she pressed on, driven by a primal force, the desperate need to protect her children. Then the world shifted. The path began to twist and turn, as if leading them away from the sanctuary of light. Panic surged through her. "This way!" she shouted, yanking them around a bend, but the foliage thickened, wrapping around them like hands intent on holding them back. "Mommy!" Emma's voice rose in pitch, panic spilling into her words. "Where's the light?" It flickered behind them, the portal receding, almost mocking in its retreat. Shadows danced along the edges, grinning as they closed in. Suddenly, another laugh echoed from the depths of the trees, much closer this time. Laura felt a chill draping over her like a wet blanket, suffocating and paralyzing. "Keep moving," she urged, pushing them forward, but they were unsteady. The shadows stretched, elongating into monstrous shapes that flickered in their peripheral vision. "It's not real," she chanted, gripping both of her children's hands, squeezing them tighter. Then a loud crack split the air. A branch broke overhead, tumbling down and crashing onto the ground just a few feet in front of them. The children screamed, their small bodies whirling away from the impending threat. "Stay close," Laura snapped, dread clawing at her throat. "We're almost there." But just then, the laughter returned, prickly and infectious. A figure emerged from the thicket, a twisted version of the one before, but this time it held her children's faces, mocking, distorted representations of their innocence. "Come play," it shrilled, eyes blazing with a malicious glow. "Get away from them," Laura roared, stepping forward, pushing against her fear as nausea swirled in her stomach. The figure's grin widened. "You can't save them from me, Laura. Not now, not ever." The forest swayed around her, alive and crawling. Laura felt the looming presence of dread close in. She couldn't let them see her tremble. She dug her heels into the ground, feeling the earth change, rippling under her feet, and then she heard it, a low, haunting whisper threading through the air. "Give in to the darkness, embrace the shadows, you know you want to." "No!" she cried, fueled with resolve, yet feeling her mental walls begin to crack. Ethan and Emma clutched at her, eyes wide and panicking. "Mommy! We need to go." But where was she supposed to go? As the figure moved closer, dancing just outside of reach, everything blurred: her thoughts, her memories, her love for them. For a moment, she felt the warmth of their embrace slip through her fingers, the essence of their laughter dimming in her ears. Was this truly the choice? To let go of what made her whole to save them? The ground quaked violently beneath them, launching Laura back into focus. She glanced at her children, their faces twisting in terror and uncertainty. Just then, another crack rang out, something heavy crashing down from the trees above. It was too late to stop. Run! She howled, but as they stumbled forward, her heart clenched tighter than ever. They never stopped running, but what awaited just ahead in the darkness could be far more horrific than what chased them. How did they escape the shadows, knowing that they were always just a breath away from the inevitability of fear? Each echo of the trees whispered an answer. A dread-filled question remained eternally unanswered. Would they be free, or had they only traded one cage for another? Laura's heart raced as they darted through the twisted forest, shadows clawing at their heels. Every rustle was a threat, every flicker of darkness a reminder of the dangers lurking just beyond sight. Emma's grip tightened, her small fingers trembling around Laura's hand. Ethan's breath came in panicked bursts, each step resonating with fear. "Stay close!" Laura shouted, her voice steady despite the terror lunging at them. She couldn't falter now. They had to reach the portal, had to escape the suffocating darkness that threatened to consume them whole. Then she saw it, a distant shimmer through the trees. It pulsed like a heartbeat, strong and filled with promise. "That way!" she cried, pulling her children forward. But the shadows writhed, twisting into monstrous forms that echoed their fears. Grinning figures reached out, taunting them with distorted laughter. "Come play!" cried a voice that sounded too much like her own children, reverberating through the air like a sinister chant. "No!" Laura screamed, shaking her head violently. "You don't get to take them." The ground trembled, a warning echoing beneath their feet. She pushed forward, determination coursing through every fiber of her being. Together, they could break through the dark. "I will always protect you," she shouted, and the shadows hesitated, reeling back in shock. But then came the figure, looming tall and obscured, its eyes glowing red under the canopy. "You will never escape," it hissed, an icy breath wrapping around Laura like chains. "They are mine." "No!" Her voice rang true and fierce, pushing back against despair. "They are my children. You have no power here." With renewed strength, she summoned memories of laughter, warmth, and love, the things that made them a family. Fire ignited inside her, pulsing through her veins. The shadows began to waver, their weight shifting. "Mommy!" Emma cried, dragging Laura back to the present. She wasn't about to let the darkness win. "This way, quick!" she urged, pointing toward the flickering light that still beckoned them. They dashed toward it, the forest swirling with chaos. Each step felt like a miracle as the void thinned, revealing a clearer path. Slowly, the boundaries of darkness faded, and with every foot they took, the horror of their surroundings began to dim. As they neared the portal, a sudden roar of fury erupted from the trees, shadows lunging to reclaim their grasp. "You think you can escape me?" The figure spat, its sinuous form lashing out like a serpent. But it was already too late. Laura felt a rush of power surging through her, rooted in the love she had for her children. They had fought so hard, endured so much. She wasn't just protecting them, she was fighting for their very souls. "Together!" she shouted, pulling Emma and Ethan into her embrace. "We are stronger than this darkness." With one last frantic surge, they leaped into the portal, hands clasped tightly. The light enveloped them, a cascading warmth that banished the shadows, the world shifting and swirling like a kaleidoscope of color, then, silence and emptiness that felt strange and foreign. As they landed on solid ground, they stumbled backward, the light fading behind them. Laura's heart sank as she realized where they were. The familiar backyard glimmered before them, but it wasn't the same. Everything felt altered, shadows creeping along the edges, dense and looming. "Did we escape?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling, eyes wide with confusion. Laura looked to Emma, who stood beside her, shaking slightly. "We're back, but where are the others?" she whispered. For a moment, a deep sense of uncertainty cushioned the air. Had they merely traded one existence for another? The shadows still lingered, intertwined with their reality, waiting for an opportune moment to strike. As they caught their breath, the wind whispered through the trees, echoing with that familiar, menacing laugh. As fear teetered on the edge of panic, Laura clenched her jaw, determined not to buckle under the weight of their past. "We have to be ready," she murmured, looking at her children with fierce resolve in her eyes. "Whatever comes next, we will face it together. Love will always be our light." And just like that, a flicker of hope ignited within them. They were still here, still a family. They would stand against whatever darkness dared to crawl back into their lives. With hands still clasped tightly, Laura led Emma and Ethan away from the lingering shadows, eyes fixed firmly on the horizon, ready to forge a new path into a future not yet defined, and as they stepped into the unknown, Laura felt a weight lift, just slightly, a reminder that together they held the power to turn even the most sinister houses into homes filled with light. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting this channel.